Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Martha from Martha Is. Today's video is going to be my mid-month wrap-up for the month of February, and you may be able to tell from my voice that I am not completely well. I've actually been out all week with flu, which has been rubbish. So hopefully I'm not going to descend into a coughing fit and we may have to cut this video short early. Anyway, enough of that. I'm doing a mid-month wrap-up in February. I did my full month wrap-up for January, and it was a lot of books in one video, made for a very long video, so I thought what I'd do is split it into two, as I know a lot of other booktubers do. So let's try it and see how we go. So I have 7 books to talk about that I've read so far in February. So the first one is Emma by Jane Austen. I mentioned this in my January wrap-up because I read about half of it in January and had to carry it forward. It's about 500 pages. So I did finally get to the end of it. I gave it 3 stars out of 5. It was fine. There were bits of it that I really liked. There was something that was keeping me from DNFing it. I don't know if it was just like irritation and not wanting to be defeated by this book. But yeah, there are bits of it that I really like, and that might be because I've kind of grown up around Jane Austen stories, as I think I've mentioned before. My mum loves Jane Austen, and so I watched all of the films when I was younger, so I am familiar with the story. So there were parts of it that I like, but there is just so much waffle. I mean, there's a character called Miss Bates that is actually part of her character, so she just keeps talking. Like, you just can't stop her talking. But there's also Mr. Woodhouse, who is Emma's father, who is basically a massive hypochondriac and worries about everything and the same things, and you're just like, okay, I get it, shut up. Yeah, so like, yeah, bits that I liked, but a lot of waffling. Definitely, I kind of think these days, if an editor got hold of it now, it would be half the length. But there we are. I don't regret reading it. Do I regret reading it? No, I don't regret reading it. I do want to read all of Jane Austen's novels, so I don't regret reading it, but it wasn't amazing. 3 stars. Then I have 2 graphic novels. So, as you would have seen from my last video, which is my February-March TBR video, there are loads of books I want to read in February. So after Emma, I had started quite a few of those. So I've started The Shipping News, I've started Me and White Supremacy, I've started another book called The Body Says No, so that was already like 3 books on the go. And then as I started to get ill and get the flu, it was one of those where you just can't really concentrate, and those were quite serious books, so I just couldn't concentrate on anything. So I've ended up, the rest of this is going to be quite easy because it's basically graphic novels and children's books, because that was the only thing I managed to read. I'm actually quite happy that I managed to read anything at all. But anyway, so first one is this one, which is called Snug by Catania Comics. So if you're not familiar with the Catania Comics, I would really recommend looking them up on Instagram. So it's basically about a couple, the comic artist, a woman, Catania, and her boyfriend, or their now fiance. So this is their second book, and they're just really cute little comics, just like a single. Is this one a good one? Just like this, just like a single page, and then like this one's a different one. So they're just really cute, and they really remind me of me and my husband, who is also tall and beardy, and we sometimes send each other their comics on Instagram. So this was actually a gift from Mr. AB. Yes, and then this one, which is called Book Love by Debbie Tung. So I read Debbie Tung's first book called I can't remember what it's called. A Quiet Girl in an Introvert's World. Something about being an introvert. I'm gonna have to look at it now.
And I can't even find it, guys. Where is it? There it is.
Here we go. Quiet Girl in a Noisy World. That's it. That was actually one of my favourite books, I think, of 2017 or 2018 when I read it. And sorry, that's extreme close up of my face. Yeah, so so Debbie Tung does graphic novels about being a bookworm, about being an introvert, being a quiet girl. So I really related to her first book, Quiet Girl in a Noisy World, because it's all about being an introvert. And so then when I saw that she had this one, I picked it up literally straight away. And this one is more specifically about being a bookworm, and it's just I relate to literally everything, every single comic in this book. So you got some cute ones. They're just brilliant. This one's about finding the perfect reading position, ways she arranged books, talking about being broke but then still buying books. Very familiar with. Yeah, I just love it. And there's also occasional ones that pop up from her, who I think is a boyfriend, which also reminds me of Phil, because I think he sort of looks at it and is just like, really? More books? Do you need more books? Yes, absolutely need more books. Anyway, so that is two of the graphic novels. Then the last graphic novel that I have is this one. Can I fit it in shot? Cassandra Darke by Posy Simmonds. So Posy Simmonds, I believe, is quite a well-known graphic artist, British graphic artist. I've never read any of her stuff before, but some of it's been made into film. So Tamara Drew, which I think starred Gemma Arterton, was one of hers. So this one, I saw it in my local Oxfam shop last Sunday and decided I wanted to treat myself because I had a swollen wisdom tooth and was coming down with flu, so I treated myself. And then, yes, once I was fully in the throes of flu and was trying to read something, I thought this is a good idea to pick it up. I actually didn't love this. I gave it 2 stars. I wanted to give it 3 because I liked the art. So, let me see that. So the art's really good. But the story, I think, was just... So I think from the blurb and from the cover, I think I expected... So you can see that she's got a gun, right? And it just sort of... The blurb and the cover kind of gave me the impression it was almost going to be like this kind of older woman that was sort of thrown into this situation where she was going to have to kind of solve like a crime or, you know, something like that. Like I was really kind of liked the idea of it being almost like her becoming an unexpected like private detective almost. And it kind of wasn't that. So Cassandra, she's an interesting character. She's an older woman. She's kind of an anti-hero, really, because she's basically like ripped a whole load of people off in the art world, and she's like a massive snob. And so the course, what happens in this story, kind of, I think, helps her to slightly become a better person, kind of. But I think there was just so much. It was just kind of a missed opportunity. There was so much that could have been done with it. It could have been like if it had become more of like a solving a crime, and she that could become a series. I actually would have been well up for that. But yeah, I think the story just didn't really grab me. I didn't really love the writing, but I did really like the art. But so I gave that 2 stars. And then the last 3 books I have to talk about are all from. I need to get rid of this massive graphic novel. Are all from a series of unfortunate events. So I never read this as a child. I've been slowly working my way through them over the last couple of years. So the first one I read was The Grim Grotto, which is book number 11. And then book number 12, which is The Penultimate Peril. And then finishing with The End, book number 13. So, yeah. The Grim Grotto and the Penultimate Peril I gave 4 stars, which is what I've basically given the whole series to date. It's silly. So if you don't know anything about a series of unfortunate events, it's this long series where at the start there's these siblings, the Baudelaires, Violet, Klaus and Sunny, and they have been orphaned because their parents have died in a fire, and so they initially get sent to different people to be their guardians, and one of them is Count Olaf, and he turns out to be a villain, and he's basically trying to steal their parents' fortune. And so as they get kind of shunted from different guardian to different guardian, he's sort of chasing them, trying to sort of kill them and get their fortune. So it's quite I really like it. It's really kind of easy to read. I mean, it's children's fiction, and it's creative and silly, which is what kind of I really liked about it. And it's good for children without feeling overly childish. And there's this kind of theme of this sort of overarching theme of like children not being listened to by adults. So, you know, in a lot of cases the adults just do totally stupid things. All of the adults that they come across do totally stupid things. They stick to, you know, principles and ideals that make absolutely no sense just because, you know, because that's their principles. And despite the children literally being in front of them being like, no, Count Olaf is literally here. He's here. Look at him. He's in a really crap disguise. Look at him. He's here. And they're like, no, that's not him. So yeah, there's that kind of overarching theme of adults not listening to children, which I'm sure happens a lot in real life. And yeah, it's just kind of a lot of fun, and the author is very playful with language and, you know, silly things. Like actually in the penultimate Peril, there's this thing around mirrors, and so I'll see if I can find some of the actual writing is mirror writing. I don't know if I see if I can find it anywhere. There was a point where my husband actually looked over and was just like, is the whole book written like that? And I was like, no, don't worry. I can't find it. Sorry, I should have been better prepared. But, yeah, so he's very... Oh, I think I just found it. Sorry, this is a terrible video. You can see what happens when I go out for a week. So, can you see? So the top half is normal and the bottom half is written in, like, mirror image. So, yeah, it's very playful. That was a long-winded way of making that point. Anyway, so... But also what's happened is 12 books. Over the course of it, it's grown and grown and grown. There's all these characters. The plot keeps sort of twisting and turning, and you know, and things aren't what you think they are. And so there become more and more questions that you have that need to be answered. And so then you get to the final one, and there's a lot of questions that need to be answered, and then they don't really get answered. So... that wasn't ideal. So I gave the last one 3 stars. To be fair, there have been other books that I finished where at the end, you know, things don't get wrapped up, and I have been absolutely raging about it. And I actually wasn't raging about this. I think because it had got so big, all of this crazy nonsense, it got to the level where it almost just was, you're like, yeah, it is nonsense. Like, there can't possibly be an answer to it. So I think, therefore, that didn't surprise me. And, yeah. So, yeah, there were some things that I would have preferred to have an answer to, which is why then I gave it 3 stars. And that, yeah, it was a little bit disappointing in that sense. But there's still, like, an overarching theme of kind of what is villainy and what is nobility. And the classic thing of a lot of people are both, you know, depending on the context. And... so, yeah, I think it was kind of a big risk for the author to take, to essentially let the whole series rest on these much broader themes, because there's no actual kind of tied up answer to the plot. But, yeah, so it was a bit of a wild ride. I am a little bit disappointed, but, I still think I'm glad I read the series. I think it's probably the difference between whether or not I would keep and reread the series or whether or not I'm giving away. I am now kind of considering whether I might just give away the whole series. But yeah, there we are. I wonder whether or not my reaction was also dampened by the fact that I finished that at literally 4 a.m. this morning because I was coughing so much I couldn't sleep. So I started the whole book at 1:15 and finished it by 4, and then just went to bed. So maybe that just dampened it. Anyway, that was a big old ramble. I'm pretty sure this is going to make for a terrible video, but there we are. Forgive me. If by some stretch of the imagination you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. Please subscribe, and come back soon. I will do another roundup at the end of February, so I'm now hopefully going to get back into reading all those other books that I started and get back on track with my TBR. And then I will be here again soon for another video. Hope you're having a lovely day. Bye.